So there's so many ways to be better with money, and one way is not allowing instant gratification to bleed you dry, which is something that can happen very quickly and easily. So here are some ways that instant gratification keeps you in a chokehold and what you can do about it. Number one is booking a last-minute flight. Now, obviously, sometimes you don't have a choice but to book one. Family members can get sick or something else unexpected can pop up. And this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about is Thursday night or maybe it's Friday morning, and you decide on the spur of the moment that you want to book something for that weekend that involves buying a plane ticket. Now, sometimes, yes, you can find a last minute deal. I hear people talking about these all the time. But I also know from experience that booking a last minute ticket, meaning that you're planning to fly within the next 2 to 3 days, can be one of the most expensive purchases. So this has happened to me about 3 times, and every time I will scour the internet looking for these fabulous last minute deals that I hear so many people talk about, but they did not exist for me, and then I end up spending about 3 times what I normally would have spent to go to those destinations. Now, in most of those cases, I didn't have a choice and I had to book the ticket because something came up. But if you do have a choice and you want to get away, one of the best ways to embrace delayed gratification is not to take last minute on the spur trips, especially if you don't have an endless flow of money, because sometimes you could end up spending way more than you have to. And to give you an example of how instant gratification can cost you, I did a little experiment and found that if I were to book a plane ticket within 24 hours to fly from my location to Atlanta, Georgia, it would cost me over $500. But if I booked that same ticket today for exactly 4 weeks from now, I would pay about $200 and some change. So roughly a $300 difference just for waiting and planning it out instead of making an on-the-spot decision to go away in the next few days. Number 2, express delivery. And again, sometimes you might need an item within the next 1 to 3 days, in which case it might make sense to pay more for express delivery. But before agreeing to that added expense, seriously consider if you have to purchase that item from that particular retailer. So in other words, is it possible for you to grab your keys, get in your car, drive to a local store and buy something similar? I did it one time because I was going out of town and I wanted to get this item before I left. And to be clear, I placed my order well within the retailer's window to get it within 3 business days. But guess what? The item did not arrive in time, so I basically ended up spending $15 for no reason. And no, I did not get my money back because I had to file a claim with the Postal Service, which I forgot to do. And yes, I know that's on me, but that's besides the point. But here's the thing, even though I thought I needed that item so badly for my trip, I still had clothes to wear, I still went, and I still had a good time without it. Number 3, fast food. Now, obviously, there's nothing wrong with the occasional treat, but one thing that I feel contributes to a lot of fast food stops is poor planning. So in other words, you didn't eat before you left the house, you forgot to pack a lunch, you didn't bring a snack while you were running errands, and now that you're headed back to the house, you're hungry and you know there's nothing prepared. But let's say that you're out and you're headed home. Be honest, are you actually going to pass out if you drive past that restaurant and not eat in that moment, but instead go home and make yourself a sandwich or maybe eat some leftovers? Now, I'm not saying that everyone will be okay in that situation, because depending on the circumstances or how long it's been since you've eaten, you might get physically ill. But for most of us, we will be okay until we get home. And once you get home and you make yourself something and you're no longer hangry, you might even give yourself a pat on the back for not spending another $10 unnecessarily. It's estimated that on average, people spend about $148 on fast food each month. And I know that doesn't seem like much, but if you don't have anything in savings or you're working with a tight budget, that can be $100 a month or $1,200 a year that you put away. Number 4 is buy now, pay later services. And I know a lot of people love these services, but the first time that I heard of these, I immediately thought, so many people are going to get themselves into trouble. And yes, I know that there are many people who are very responsible when it comes to using these services, but I also know that others aren't. Several months ago, I saw this video of this girl who was happy because she was finally able to pay off the balances that she owed to multiple services. And I can't remember exactly how much she owed, but it was several $100s. And by her own admission, she even said that shopping just became too easy. Personally, I feel that a lot of these services encourage instant gratification gratification, and they reinforce bad spending habits because they get people into a pattern of buying things that they don't have money to purchase. And some people might argue that since there's no interest, using a buy now, pay later service is no different than saving up first, and that you're just doing things in reverse. But I actually disagree with that. Because when you save up for a purchase first, there's a lot of time in between, which means that there's also time to think about whether you really want to buy the item. I can go online right now, see a gadget and say, you know, I want this, let me use one of these services so I can buy it today. But if I make a conscious effort to save up that money over the next 4 weeks before buying that gadget, that gives me time to research it, to comparison shop, and ultimately decide if it really makes sense in my life. And one thing about waiting 3 or 4 weeks is that the excitement for the item could die and you no longer want it. And finally, one-click purchases. Now, I am not totally against saving credit card information online. I do have mine saved with Amazon, and so far I've been okay and I haven't been hacked. But if you have a problem with impulse control, overspending, or you're trying to save money and you don't want to make it too easy for yourself, saving your credit card information, which basically allows one-click purchases, is asking for trouble. You really have to be honest with yourself and know what you can handle. Because if instant gratification gets you every single time, meaning that you are somebody who can't just browse, you should really consider putting some obstacles in place that will make spending harder. And there are several ways to do this. Some people will freeze their credit card, which prevents using it in store and online. Some people use cash envelope methods, and others might go as far as blocking certain websites. But the one underrated thing that you can do, in my opinion, is to delete saved credit card information. I can't tell you the number of times I've been in bed shopping online, adding things to my cart, and then abandoning the whole cart just because I didn't want to get up and go and get my wallet. And I know it can seem like something very minor, but sometimes the slightest inconvenience can really reveal how much you really want something.